sodium is a major हाँ, sodium is a major osmotically active extracellular ion. Under normal circumstances, the body regulates the plasma concentration by adjusting the water content of the extracellular uh, constituent. So, basic slide this tells us is that the sodium disorder is always a water disorder. Whenever you are getting hyponatremia, it could be due to volume excess, or it could be due to volume deficit also, or it could be a euvolumic state. So this slide basically focused that sodium is an extracellular ion, and sodium disorder is basically a water disorder. There is an integrated role of thirst, vasopressin, and renal, uh, which plays a very important tight balance between sodium and water. So, therefore, hyponatremia is always due to a defect in water balance. So, this is the most important slide of this lecture, physiology of the renal tubule. As you can see, uh, all of you in physiology would have read this. This is the Bowman's capsule. There is a proximal convoluted tubule. There is a loop of Henle. There is a distal convoluted tubule, and ultimately there is a collecting duct. As you can see in this slide, about 70% of sodium reabsorption occurs in the proximal convoluted tubule. Along with this, the water also reabsorbs, and along with this, the uric acid also is being absorbed. Then comes the loop of Henle. As you can see in this diagram, there is a descending limb and there is an ascending limb. Uh, in descending limb, you can see the sodium and water are reabsorbed, while the ascending limb is impermeable to water, loop of Henle. So here only the sodium absorption occurs. The rest of the sodium reaches the DCT. As you all know, the aldosterone, its main action is sodium retention along with water retention, and it excretes potassium. And ultimately, whatever the urine which reaches the collecting duct has very low content of sodium. So it would be a hypotonic urine. So what body does? There is the antidiuretic hormone. This inhibits diuresis. So it retains water, as you can see. So here the antidiuretic hormone acts ADH at the collecting duct and it retains water. So just in nutshell, if you see, there is a proximal convoluted tubule where the sodium and the water reabsorption occurs along with glucose and along with uric acid. Then the loop of Henle, the descending limb, is permeable to water and sodium, but the ascending limb is impermeable to water. So more and more sodium is absorbed into the from the ascending limb of loop of Henle. In DCT, the aldosterone acts; it retains sodium and water, and ultimately at the collecting duct, the antidiuretic hormone acts, which inhibits diuresis, so it retains more and more of water. So kidney plays a very important role in water homeostasis. The loop of Henle and the collecting duct regulate urine concentrated mechanisms by countercurrent mechanism. The DCT, a segment that follows the cortical thick ascending loop, which is relatively impermeable to water, contributes to the dilution of tubular fluid by active reabsorption of sodium chloride. And the collecting duct is the osmotic equilibrium between the urine and the medullary interstitium, which is mediated by the vasopressin. There are a lot of aquaporin channels, vasopressin channels, which helps in uh, 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 rapid transport of water across the cell membranes. A number of other hormones, aldosterone, it retains sodium, it retains water. So whenever there will be a aldosterone excess, there will be water retention, there will be sodium retention, and there will be hypokalemia. Atrial natriuretic peptide, it plays an important role in uh, SIDH syndromes. It plays an important role in salt wasting syndromes. It leads to natriuresis. So it leads to hyponatremia. Glucocorticoids, glucagones, calcitonin, they also play an important role in regulating renal tubular levels. So just we will discuss with case 80-year-old female comes with hypertension, a known case of hypertension and heart failure. She presents with confusion, lethargy, poor oral intake and weakness for 3 days. Her lab sodium is 118. So there is a 80-year-old female. She comes with hypertension and heart failure and now she presents with confusion, lethargy, poor oral intake, and she has weakness for 3 days. Her lab value of sodium is 118. So we all know it is hyponatremia. Now, basic is why she is having hyponatremia. She could be on some antihypertensive medications which leads to hyponatremia. Heart failure medications like diuretics, they lead to hyponatremia. She is having poor oral intake, that can lead to hyponatremia. Or other thing, she is not taking her medications as a result of which she would have landed in hypervolemic hyponatremia. So it is a case of hyponatremia. It could be either hypovolemic or hypervolemic. So our basic aim is to differentiate these two hyponatremias, whether it is a hypovolemic hyponatremia or hypervolemic, because the treatment of these two differ accordingly. So just to see the distribution of total body water, 2/3 of the body water is in the intercellular compartment. That is, if it's 40 liters, 25 liters in intercellular compartment. Only 1/3, that is the extracellular, is present in the extracellular compartment. So out of this 40, 25 goes into the intercellular. It doesn't play an important role because the sodium is the extracellular ion. So in 15 liters is the extracellular. Of this, only 1/4 is plasma. So only 1/4, that is 20%. Here a sodium disorder will be reflected. But as you can see, of total 40 liters, it only tells about 3 liters. That is, it would be hardly, I think so, 1/8 or something of this. So it is a very negligible amount. So there are 3 types of hyponatremia: hypovolemic, hypervolemic, or euvolemic. Hypovolemic means there is a water deficit which is leading to, it is a volume deficit which is leading to hyponatremia. Hypervolemic, when the volume exceeds more than the sodium. So there's too much of water, as a result of which the sodium levels goes down. Euvolemic, the volume status is fine. So sodium disorder is always a water disorder. So try to find whether it is hypovolemic, hypervolemic, or euvolemic. How to do it? I have written a word like apparent or effective decreased blood volume. Apparent means there is patient is having nausea, vomiting, poor oral intake, diarrhea. He is not taking properly, elderly female not taking, apparent. So she has a decreased blood volume. Effective means that blood volume is not present in the extracellular compartment, it's present in the interstitial compartment. That is, as you all know, is present in conditions like CHF, cirrhosis, renal failure. So what happens? There is decreased renal perfusion. So once the renal perfusion is decreased, there is a stimulation of juxtaglomerular apparatus. Then what will happen? The renin will be released and ultimately aldosterone will be released. So there will be sodium and water retention. But both sodium and water are being retained while the patient is having hyponatremia. There is another mechanism. As the blood volume is decreased, there is stimulation of anti-diuretic hormone. The body tries to conserve water because there is an apparent or effective blood volume which is decreased. As a result of which, the urine output is low. So water retention exceeds sodium retention. So as a result of which, the patient gets hyponatremia. So this is a very classical mechanism which happens in hypovolemic hyponatremia. The patient comes with hypovolemic hyponatremia, you start resuscitating with fluids. What happens after 1 or 2 hours? This stimulation of ADH goes off. It is inhibited. Now the patient starts passing a lot of urine, 100, 150 ml, and this water loss is more than sodium which you are giving. And ultimately the patient starts having rapid rise in sodium. So it's a common question which is asked by PG, sir, what happens? You start hypovolemic hyponatremia after giving only 1 liter fluid, the sodium starts jumping 7, 8. Then what to do? So only thing is there is the ADH inhibition goes off. So body starts pushing off lot of urine. So as a result of which the volume loss is more, so your sodium will be proportionally high. So you get low. In this condition, what you get a low urinary sodium along with all the features of dehydration like raised 1U creatine, increased uric acid, all these things you get. Now comes to euvolemic hyponatremia. It is seen in conditions like adrenal insufficiency, SIDH, and hypothyroidism. I will discuss what happens in adrenal insufficiency, SIDH, and hypothyroidism. SIDH, there is more and more of ADH. There are 2 conditions: deficiency of ADH, that is called as DI, diabetes insipidus, and it is a condition which leads to hypernatremia. Here is more and more of ADH is released. Syndrome of inappropriate ADH. More and more of ADH is released, as a result of which the body tries to retain more and more of water. So the patient starts having hyponatremia. Hypothyroidism, what happens? I will just tell you in 1 or 2 minutes. T3, T4 levels are low, as a result of which the TSH level rises. So that is an analog of CRH, and as a result of which the patient starts retaining water and the patient develops hyponatremia. In adrenal insufficiency, uh, there are two types of adrenal insufficiency, like if it is Addison disease, uh, in which there is a mineralocorticoid deficiency, the sodium and water retention is blocked, as a result of which the patients develop uh, hyponatremia. Other thing is there is a glucocorticoid deficiency, like cortisol deficiency. So cortisol is low, the CRH is stimulated from the hypothalamus, and that is an analog of ADH, and the patient starts retaining more and more of water. So whenever a patient of hyponatremia comes, do send cortisol levels, do send thyroid levels, do ADH levels we don't monitor, but these two, like thyroid and cortisol levels, are important, which should be sent routinely. There is an excess ADH release which leads to water retention. Then there is more and more of renal perfusion. So what happens? The renal perfusion is more, so atrial natriuretic factor is increased, as a result of which there is loss of urinary sodium. So more and more urinary sodium. So in hypovolemic or hypervolemic hyponatremia, in previous slide which I discussed, there will be low urinary sodium. But I will discuss there are some exceptions. In if it's euvolemic, the urinary sodium is bound to be high. So you get a urinary sodium which is high along with normal bulk creatinine and uric acid. So approach to hyponatremia for me, most important is volume status. How do I assess volume? I don't put center lines and all these things. I just see the clinical scenario. I see the tongue of the patient, whether it is dry or moist, or I do a simple my ultrasound pro and see the IVC. If it is a heart failure patient, ejection fraction will be low and the IVC will be around 2.5. Provisionally, the patient should not be tachypneic. If the patient is tachypneic, there is no role of seeing IVC. So I see IVC. If it is distended, I know it is hypervolemic. If it is collapsing, I know it is hypovolemic. But the patient should not be tachypneic. What other parameter we are trying to see is volume statuses. We did in some 40-50 patients, then all these things we were analyzing, then corona came and all these things, so that data is lying somewhere. So fractional excretion of uric acid, it also tells you about something about the volume status. Then you measure serum and urine osmolality. As you all know, it is hyponatremia, the serum osmolality will be low, urine osmolality will be high, because the body tries to conserve water. So osmolality is solute upon solvent. The solvent will be reduced, as a result of which the osmolality will be high. And you measure urinary sodium. This is very thing, I think so, one take home message from this lecture to all the PGs, all the whoever is listening, please measure urinary sodium. How do we measure? We send to biochemistry, or we just put the this urinary sodium sample, urine sample into our ABG machine, and we get the sodium value. And other thing, prior starting any correction, whether you are giving hypertonic saline fluids, just do a baseline urinary sodium. It helps. It helps a lot. So hyponatremia, sodium, you have to rule out pseudo hyponatremia. I think so. Most of us are anesthetists. We know all these conditions like TURP and everything, where too much of that fluid is given, or the patient is having diabetic ketoacidosis, lot of mannitol is given. So these are the conditions in which pseudo hyponatremia occurs. If it's hypoosmolar, this means the serum osmolality is low, because serum osmolality formula, as I described, is twice into sodium plus glucose by 18 plus 1 by 2.8. So it depends on the sodium levels. Glucose, if it is high, it can lead to increased serum osmolality. So what hyponatremia we encounter is basically hypoosmolar hyponatremia. Then what to do? We assess the volume status or urinary sodium. Volume status, I do it by seeing the just skin, I see the tongue and all these things clinically. If it is moist, I know it is volume is fine. If it is dry, I know the volume is hypovolemic. And history plays a very important role. Patient with CLD comes, I know it will be hypervolemic hyponatremia. Patient with heart failure comes, patient is having pulmonary edema, bilateral B lines. See, if you are getting hyponatremia with bilateral B lines, I know it is hypervolemic. If I am getting hyponatremia with normal lungs, no B lines, IVC collapsal, I know it is hypovolemic hyponatremia. So ultrasound plays a very important role in assessing the volume status. Urinary sodium is also important. If the urinary sodium is low, it goes in favor of hypo or hypervolemic. If the urinary sodium is high, it goes in favor of euvolemic. But exceptions are always there. We can't. I will just tell you. In some conditions like hypovolemic hyponatremia, also the urinary sodium can be high. You all know it could be due to diuretic abuse. Just in next slide, assess volume status. Hypovolemic urinary sodium will be low if it is extrarenal. Matlab extrarenal means GI losses. Urinary sodium will be high, that is renal cause. Diuretic abuse, azide diuretics, you know, mineralocorticoid deficiency, aldosterone leads to sodium and water retention. So if it's a deficiency of aldosterone, the sodium will be, loss of sodium will be in the urine, and salt losing disorders. If it is euvolemic, urinary sodium will be high, SIDH, hypothyroidism, adrenal insufficiency, and stress. Hypervolemic, urinary sodium will be low, like in conditions like cirrhosis, CHF, renal failure, nephrotic syndrome. Urinary sodium will be high in acute or chronic renal failure. So, basically, we assess the volume status, and then we see the urinary sodium. The urinary sodium is invariably low in conditions of hypovolemic hyponatremia if the disorder is extrarenal. If it is renal, urinary sodium will be high. In hypervolemic hyponatremia, the urinary sodium is bound to be low because the effective blood volume is decreased. So RAS is activated, which tries to retain more and more of sodium and water. But it can be high in conditions like renal failure. Urinary sodium will be high in conditions like euvolemic hyponatremia like SIDH, hypothyroidism, and adrenal insufficiency. So just algorithm we can see. If the patient is a hyponatremia arise, the patient is having seizures. Patient is in altered sensorium. Then I don't think of whether it is hypo, hyper, or euvolemic. I start directly hypertonic saline. If the patient is not having severe symptoms, the patient is conscious, then I do the urine osmolality. My urine osmolality invariably out of 199 patients, it will be high. So if it is low, then it is basically beer protonemia, patient is taking too much of water or low solute intake. These are all psychiatric disorders, all these things. So my patient urine osmolality will be high. It will be something in the range of some 400 to 1200 milliosmol, something urine osmolality will be there. Then I measure the urinary sodium concentration. Now the urinary sodium concentration is low. I am happy. I know it is either there is a low effective circulating volume. It could be apparent or effective. So it could be hypovolemic or hypervolemic. If urinary sodium is low, I am not worried. It is not euvolemic. Then I see the IVC status. If it's expanded ECF, the patient is having IVC distended, patient is having ascites, I know it is CLD. If the patient is IVC is distended, urine output is low, patient is having B line, I know it is renal failure. If the IVC is distended, heart is contracting poor, I am getting B lines, I know it is heart failure. Now, if I am getting a kissing IVC, lungs, no B lines, I know it is contracted ECF, so patient is having diarrhea and vomiting. Now the urinary concentration, sodium concentration 20, more than 20, I know it is either it could be euvolemic or it could be diuretic abuse. The patient would be on diuretics, or it could be the patient is having some salt wasting, cerebral salt wasting syndrome. So which we will discuss it, or the patient is having euvolemic hyponatremia. So what are the effects which hyponatremia leads to? I will not touch. You all know the sodium concentration in the your extracellular fluid is reduced. As a result of which, you all know the water will go into the intercellular compartment, that is our brain cells, and ultimately the brain swelling will occur. So, because here the sodium is low, here the sodium is high, the water will move from this compartment to this compartment, intercellular compartment, just to stabilize the tonicity, and you get brain edema. So, sign symptoms, you get brain swelling, you get lethargy, drowsiness, confusion, weakness, seizures, and coma. Non-specific anorexia, nausea, dizziness, lack of balance. These are the common symptoms. Now, management of hyponatremia. Management of hyponatremia is not so simple. I think so. Bhaskar will agree. Dr. Jiten will agree. Subodh will agree. It is just like fever. You have to search for the cause of fever. What is causing hyponatremia? That is very important. I tell my residents, don't start hypertonic saline unless until the patient is in altered sensorium or seizure. Please search for the underlying cause. So now things have improved. They send all these urinary sodium levels and all these things. This used to be happen 6 months back. Now we are not getting these hyponatremias. We are getting only corona patients in our ICU. So how fast you should correct sodium? It should not be corrected more than 8 to 10 millimole. You all know the correction should not be more than 8 to 10. And when would you use hypertonic saline? Whether when the patient is only having seizures, altered sensorium, or I know it is euvolemic hyponatremia. It is criminal to give hypertonic saline in hypovolemic and hypervolemic. CHF का पेशेंट है, रीनल फेलियर का पेशेंट है, वैसे ही फ्लूइड ओवरलोड में आपने हाइपोटोनिक दे दी, बेचारा हार्ट फेलियर से मर जाएगा. So this is important. But patient को सीजर है, altered sensorium है, then at this point of time you are justified. Treatment, hypovolemic, simple thing, start giving fluids. Normal saline is the common fluid which we give. That is the treatment of choice. In hypervolemia, we restrict fluid intake, we give Lasix, and in some patients, we know the patient is having ejection fraction 30-35, he's having lots of edema. We start Lasix infusion, and you can, I just say the resident, just monitor the sodium, what is happening. And over a period of 2-3 days, the sodium starts rising. So it tells you about the uh, volume status. You are giving too much of diuretic to a patient and the patient is developing hypernatremia. I know we are giving too much of diuretics. So sodium tells you a lot about the intercellular compartment, extracellular compartment. If you are giving too much of diuretics, the patient is bound to having hypernatremia. So these things are important. In euvolemic, ADH antagonist, Conveptan, Tolvaptan, each tablet I think so 15-20 rupees. It is too costly treatment for a patient. Or then you have to correct sodium in these euvolemic. If it is hypothyroidism, correct thyroid. Or if the patient is transiently, you can give hypertonic saline in euvolemic to bring sodium to normal levels. How do we do sodium correction? I think so. This is all been taught. All our students are now smart. We learned all this while doing intensive care. Now our PGs know these corrections, and it is total body water into desired sodium minus measured sodium. My desired minus measured will always be 10. I don't want, if my sodium is 108, I don't want it 140. I want it only 118. So my this factor comes 10. Total body water, it is simple. For males, it is a factor of 0.6. For female, it is a factor of 0.5. So a 50 kg woman presents to emergency with lethargy, confusion, or sodium is 115. So how much sodium I want to correct? Only up to 125. So my this difference comes 10. 50 into 0.5, it is 25. 25 into 10, I have to give 250 milliculents. So I know either I can give NS or I can give my hypertonic saline. If it is euvolemic, I will go with 3%. So I know in 100 ml there is 50 milliculents. So I have to correct 250. So 5 times I have to give 500 ml. So 500 ml in 24 hours, 500 divided by 24, it comes to 20 ml per hour. Fine. Now, if it is hypovolemic hyponatremia, I know it has to be replaced with 1 liter of, we have to replace it with NS. You know 1 liter of NS contains 154 milliculents. So 250, I think so I have to give around 1.5, 1.7 liters of NS. I divide it by 24, 1600 divided by 24, I get that is 66 ml per hour. So if you are giving NS also, you can calculate, because 1 liter, suppose some patients, in this patient, it was around 1.6 liters I have to give. So that 1.6 liters has to be given in 24 hours. 1600 divided by 24, it comes to 60 ml per hour, 60 to 70 ml per hour. Or you can do an Andre-Magus equation, infusate sodium minus serum sodium upon total body water plus 1. Here the infusate sodium is 154 if you are giving NS. If it is infusate sodium is hypertonic saline, you keep a value of 513. And ultimately you calculate the change in serum sodium, how much you want. Too rapid correction, we have seen osmotic demyelination syndrome, patient is ataxic, or the patient becomes paraparetic. Only head nodding and all these things will be there, just bedridden patients. So it is a very iatrogenic complication. You feel sorry, and it's quite worrisome situation for the family. So please try to avoid it. Central pontine analysis, it leads to what it presents at para-quadriparesis. The patient can have dysphagia, diplopia, dysarthria. We have seen patients in locked in state, and there is a loss of consciousness. So sodium has to be respected and the sodium correction should not never be rapid. Now what we are doing in last 1.5 years is we are calculating the fractional excretion of uric acid. Uh, just to explain you in just 1 or 2 minutes, basically we are seeing the amount of uric acid which is being excreted in urine. So the formula for that is urinary uric acid into serum creatinine upon serum uric acid into urinary creatinine. Basically, you are seeing how much in urine the uric acid is excreted. So ideally, if it's a patient of dehydration, the body will try to retain sodium, the body will try to retain uric acid. That's why you get a high serum uric acid. So the fractional excretion of uric acid will be low. It will be less than 4%. We have seen a lot of patients in zone of 4 to 10. That also we take uh, as a condition that volume status is low. Uh, if the fractional excretion of uric acid is more than 10, this means the body volume status is fine. The body is excreting too much of uric acid in the urine. Fine. So the fractional excretion of uric acid is high because numerator is urine uric acid. Got my point? So this is seen in conditions like euvolemic state, like cerebral salt wasting syndrome and SIDH. In these conditions, you get high fractional excretion of uric acid. Cerebral salt wasting syndrome is basically a hypovolemic hyponatremia, but atrial natriuretic factor is stimulated, so you get lot of sodium in urine. So fractional excretion of uric acid is high. We know there are two conditions. It could be salt wasting syndrome or SIDH. If it is low, I am very happy it is hypovolemic or hypervolemic. I correlate. If it is cirrhosis, renal failure, or CHF, I give diuretics. If it is hypovolemic, I start giving fluids. So conditions with decreased intravascular volume, the RAS will activated. There will be reabsorption of sodium. Hence, the uric acid will also be reabsorbed. So the fractional excretion of uric acid will be low. Hence, serum uric acid will be high. Fe urate will be less than 4 in hypovolemic and hypervolemic hyponatremia. In conditions with increased intravascular volume like SADH and other euvolemic hyponatremia, the volume is high. Uh, there is decreased reabsorption of sodium. There is decreased reabsorption of uric acid. So you get high fractional excretion of uric acid. That is more than 11% that you see in SIDH and salt wasting syndrome. So how to differentiate salt wasting syndrome and SIDH? This was a very common condition which comes post neurosurgery. Sir, salt wasting hai ya SIDH hai? So my simple thing is their Fe urate will be high in both conditions. Urinary sodium will be high in both conditions. Urinary osmolality will also be high. See, in salt wasting syndrome, the numerator is solute, that is sodium, so it will be high. In uh, uh, your SIDH, the denominator, the water uh, is high. The amount of water which the body is trying to conserve is high, so amount of water in the urine is low. So there are two things, different things which are happening. Urine osmolality is high in both conditions. In salt wasting, the urine osmolality is high. Why? Because the sodium loss is high in urine. In SIDH, urine osmolality is high because the solvent in the urine is low because the body is trying to conserve sodium. So how to differentiate? My basic thing, I'm a more of a clinical, I say to the student, to each and to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Give water to a patient, start fluid at 100 ml per hour. If the sodium starts falling, I know it is SIDH. If the sodium starts improving, I know it is salt wasting syndrome. Other way around, people give a Lasix challenge. If by giving Lasix, the sodium improves, it is SIDH. If the sodium falls, it is salt wasting syndrome. So you can just, I go with a volume challenge test rather than a Lasix challenge test. Is Fe urate. Fe urate will be high in both conditions after correcting sodium. If it is salt wasting syndrome, the Fe urate will become normal. If the Fe urate remains high, it goes in favor of SIDH. So in SIDH, salt wasting syndrome is a type of hypovolemic hyponatremia, so you can get increased urea. The blood pressure will be normal or decreased. CVP I don't put in, it will be decreased in salt wasting because it is a hypovolemic hyponatremia. The urine volume in salt wasting syndrome is really increased. While in SID, the urine output will be low. Thirst will be increased and SID it will be normal. Hypothyroidism, I told you, TSH stimulated, as a result of which ADH is stimulated and the body tries to retain more and more of water. In cortisol deficiency, post-pituitary surgeries, it is not which is aldosterone which is leading to all these things, because you will see these patient comes with isolated hyponatremia. They don't have hyperkalemia, they don't have hyperkalemia, they don't have metabolic acidosis. They come only with isolated hyponatremia. And what is the basic mechanism is cortisol deficiency is there, ACTH is stimulated, CRH is stimulated, and this CRH is an ADH secretable, as a result of which the patient starts developing hyponatremia. Adrenal insufficiency, basically you all know, if it's adrenal failure, the aldosterone is inhibited. Aldosterone retains sodium, so it will not retain sodium, as a result of which the patient will have hyponatremia and it will have hyperkalemia with metabolic acidosis. So what we do bedside, just to cut it short, I think so I've spoken for more than 10 to 20 minutes it has been. So I will just, this is important, I will just give 10 minutes on this slide and then we can have some discussion. Step 1 to all residents is please assess history. Don't jump on conclusion. Just see whether it is a patient of cirrhosis, renal failure, CHF, what drugs the patient is having, or what past 2-3 days the patient has happened to him, whether the oral intake is decreased and all these things. So this is the most important thing. Assess history and examination, and then we see the IVC diameter along with lung ultrasound. We do it. Step 2, we get a spot urinary sodium into our ABG machine. If the urinary sodium is high, I am happy, it is SIDH. It could be salt wasting, or it could be diuretic abuse. So if the patient is on diuretics, I know it is diuretic abuse. SIDH and salt wasting, we will discuss what we do. If urinary sodium is less than 20, I am very happy. It is hypovolemic or hypervolemic. It is simple. You just correlate clinically. If it is hypovolemic, give volumes. If it is hypervolemic, give diuretics and all these things. Then we send FeUrate, TSH and cortisol. This is textbook which we send to all hyponatremic patients. FeUrate, TSH and cortisols are sent. If urinary sodium is high, we start fluid at 100 ml per hour. I told you why. It could be SIDH, it could be salt wasting, it could be diuretic abuse. Diuretic abuse, we know the patient is hypovolemic, so we start fluids in these patients. If the patient starts, if it is hypovolemic, that is salt wasting, the patient will respond to fluid 100 ml per hour. If it is hyper, the patient starts having fall in sodium. We restrict fluids in these patients. So urinary sodium high, I know the condition is SIDH, salt wasting, diuretic abuse. I start with fluid 100 ml per hour. If urinary sodium is low, then I know it is either hypovolemic or hypervolemic. Hypovolemic, I give fluids. Hypervolemic, I restrict fluids. Then comes the most tough step is step 5, SIDH and salt wasting, what to do. Sir, FeUrate has been sent. It will take around 4 to 6 hours. The patient came at 12 night, what to do? I said, you just take the sample. If the lab is not accepting the sample, please keep that sample of baseline urinary FeUrate so we know what is the baseline fluid. And by the time I ask the resident to start fluid 100 ml per hour. If after giving for 4-5 hours 500 ml, the sodium starts decreasing, I know it is SIDH. If the sodium starts improving, I know it is salt wasting, and ask the resident to give more and more of fluid. If urine is low, I know it is more in favor of SIDH. In salt wasting, the urine output will be high. We get the report of FeUrate more than 11%. I know it is SIDH or salt wasting. If FeUrate is 4 to 10%, less than 4, I know it is hypovolemic hyponatremia or hypervolemic hyponatremia. And when we repeat FeUrate, people say, sir, आप कब करते हो hypo और hypervolemic hyponatremia में करोगे? क्यों करोगे आप? जब आप hyponatremia को correct करने लग जाओगे hypovolemic में, तो urinary sodium body uric acid retention कम कर देगी, FeUrate बढ़ जाएगा. So why to repeat it? So if the FeUrate is less than 4, less than 10, no need to repeat FeUrate.
Hello, sir, your audio got disconnected.
Okay.
Yeah.
अभी आ रहा है मैडम?
सर थोड़ा वॉल्यूम कम है.
अब आ रहा है?
नहीं, वॉल्यूम इज लेस.
अब
या.
so we repeat FeU rate once the sodium is corrected. If FeU rate is less than 11%, we know now it is after correction. If it is falling, we know it is SIDH. If FeU rate is high, we know it is salt testing syndrome. So just coming on to the last slide, this we have discussed regarding hyponatremia. This is the common algorithm which we follow in our ICU. I think so we shared in the last slide. So just coming on to the last slide. So sodium disorder is a water disorder. Please search for the cause of hyponatremia, whether it is hypo, hyper, and euvolemic. Classify your patient to type of hyponatremia and treat it